Every time your street is plowed, your garbage or recycling is collected, you visit a trail or park, or catch the bus, budget dollars are at work. Decisions made as part of budget development determine funding for the programs and services that maintain our quality of life. A number of budget principles have been put in place to guide the budget development and ensure prudent use of taxpayers' dollars without compromising the integrity of operations or the delivery of public services. The budget is a foundation on which a sustainable future is built to meet the public service and infrastructure needs of residents and businesses. Budget decisions, therefore, need to be reflective of the realities faced by our neighbors, families, friends, and taxpayers. That is why it is so important that the budget reflects sensible use of tax dollars while continuing to provide municipal services and operations. A municipal budget is really just a plan for how dollars will be used, invested, or earned over a given time period. It is also a policy and planning document that outlines the city's priorities. Balancing those priorities is a challenging undertaking. That's because we need to identify what we need to do now to keep providing this high level of service to our residents and plan on what we need to do in the future. It's also about what we can afford to do. Ontario legislation states that money coming in must equal money going out. In other words, the budget must be balanced. So, how does the city pay for the services we provide? To break it down, for every dollar that is spent, 50% comes from property taxes, 22% comes from grants and subsidies, 12% comes from rate revenue, like water, wastewater, and stormwater, 12% comes from user fees, and 4% comes from reserves. To meet the diverse needs of the community we serve in a fiscally responsible way, the city prepares both an annual and multi-year budget. The annual budget is approved each year by council, while the multi-year budget provides insight on what's anticipated in the future. There are three main components to the city's annual budget: the tax-supported operating budget, the tax-supported capital budget, and the rate-supported operating and capital budgets. First, let's take a look at the tax-supported operating budget. The tax-supported operating budget is a plan for the day-to-day operations at the city, including salaries, materials and supplies, and financing of capital projects. The tax-supported operating budget is largely funded by tax dollars and user fees, which include charges for recreation programs, transit, infractions, permits, and licensing. Under legislation, municipalities cannot finance operations with debt. Next, let's find out more about the tax-supported capital budget. The tax-supported capital budget is the long-term plan for the construction or purchase and financing of the city's capital assets. Capital assets include infrastructure, land, buildings, machinery, and equipment. Forms of funding include grants, development charges, gas tax, reserves, debt, and contributions from the operating budget. We'll talk more about debt and reserves later. Lastly, the city has a rate-supported budget. The rate-supported budget is the annual plan for the day-to-day operations of the city's services and financing of capital projects supported from water, wastewater, and stormwater user rates. The rate-supported capital budget is a long-term plan for the purchase or construction and financing of water, wastewater, and stormwater capital assets. Forms of funding include grants, development charges, debt, reserves, and contributions from the operating budget. A conversation about municipal budgeting wouldn't be complete without talking about reserves, debt management, and investments. Reserves and reserve funds are similar to a savings account, where funds are set aside for future capital needs. The city's reserves can be broken down into two categories: non-obligatory, sometimes called discretionary, and obligatory. Non-obligatory reserves are based on council direction and are used to finance future expenditures designated by council. They are comprised of tax-supported, such as tax stabilization reserve, rate-supported, such as wastewater reserve, and the Hamilton Future Fund, which was due to the restructuring of the Hamilton Utilities Corporation. Obligatory reserves are funds that are required by the province to be segregated for a specific purpose. They are comprised of development charge reserves, which are funded by developer contributions for growth-related capital costs, federal gas tax reserves, which are designed to support local infrastructure priorities in specific project categories, and provincial gas tax reserves, which are used to fund public transit infrastructure, parkland dedication reserves, which are funded by developers for parkland purposes under the Planning Act, and building permit reserves, which are used to fund eligible activities governed by the Building Code Act where other sources of funding are not available. The city's debt management policy helps ensure long-term financial flexibility and sustainability, as well as helps to maintain the city's credit rating, which is currently AA+. Forecasted debt levels are within council-approved policy limits. In 2018, the combined tax and rate limit is $780 million, and the development charge limit is $566 million. Now, let's take a look at investment management at the city. Governed by the Municipal Act, the city has the ability to invest surplus funds not immediately required for its purposes in short and long-term investments. For example, the city invests money in the Reserves Fund until it is required for future obligations. The primary objectives for all city investment activities are to ensure the safety of principal, maintain adequate liquidity to meet the city's cash needs, as well as earn investment income. Part of Council's decision-making process each year is to determine what levels of funding for services should come from the various sources of revenue. Budget meetings are held from October to April each year. Typically, the tax-supported capital and rate budgets are presented first, followed by the tax-supported operating budget later in the cycle. Corporate Services presents the tax-supported capital. Together, Corporate Services and Public Works present the rate budget. Then, Corporate Services presents the tax operating budget corporate-wide impact, and each department presents their own tax operating budget and business plans. Councillors have an opportunity to ask questions and seek clarification from staff. Public delegations appear before Council as well. Meetings are also held to focus on budgets submitted from related boards, agencies, and committees requiring Council approval, such as Hamilton Police Services, Hamilton Public Library, conservation authorities, other agencies including Royal Botanical Gardens, Hamilton Beach Rescue Unit, and volunteer subcommittees. To maintain accountability and transparency, the city submits reports to Council on variances in expenditures and revenues from budget. The city prepares, and independent auditors audit, our annual financial statements. An annual financial information return, or FIR, is submitted to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. The FIR is a legislatively required data collection tool to collect financial and statistical information and compare across municipalities. The City of Hamilton's budgets work in conjunction with multi-year business planning. Staff closely monitor and report key metrics on visual dashboards, allowing Council to keep a pulse on performance through the Trust and Confidence Report. All of these pieces come together to support the city's strategic plan and vision to be the best place to raise a child and age successfully. Municipal budgeting can be a daunting undertaking with many facets and anomalies. Corporate Services works collectively with departments and Council with the unifying objective of a transparent budget process and a shared commitment to steadfast integrity.